doesn't happen a lot in the world of sports entertainment. But when it happens, it's something special. It's a rare thing. When a competitor, an entertainer, a wrestler, a sports entertainer, whatever you want to call, what we do, when a guy or gal, in this case a guy, can be someone who triggers thoughts, opinions, views, be it negative or positive, to the level of a CM Punk, gotta say, impressive as all hell. Very, very impressive. I'm quasi-jealous because I thought back in my prime, I was interesting at times and would do some things that were cool, in and out of the ring or whatever, but nowhere near the level of a CM Punk with how polarizing this guy truly is. And I tweeted something yesterday on Sunday in the morning because it was just something that got me thinking. And, you know, the announcement of CM Punk being signed a contract for UFC, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. But I just want to give a few minutes of thoughts and opinions because some things can get lost in translation via email or a text message or a tweet. So I wanted to just kind of speak who I am here, what my mind is, I should say, in a quick podcast, kind of a preview of what the Human Podcast Machine show will be, my show that will be available to download on January 7th. This is not my first show. This is just a kind of a preview. Like I said, wanted to give some thoughts and opinions about CM Punk and all, and this is just kind of a sampling, like an appetizer. Appetizer, that's the key word, right? So basically, I tweeted about the timeline of events of what happened with CM Punk from Thanksgiving, up until this past Saturday night, and it was interesting because in my tweet, which got a lot of favorites and a lot of retweets, I basically broke down that on Thanksgiving, Punk did the podcast with Cabana, a shoot style where he kind of exposed all about his WWE experience, the negatives and positives, mostly negatives, and why he was fired on his wedding day, and his mistreatment and all this other stuff, and then a couple days later on Monday Night Raw, there was the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast where Vince McMahon was the guest. It was more of a live show, more of a talk show that they just saved the audio, or I guess video, for the WWE Network. So I guess it was a podcast, but it kind of really wasn't, let's be honest. It seemed like just content to fill for the WWE Network, to be frank. Then I believe, which I forgot to mention in the tweet, because you only got those damn 140 characters, Punk signed with Pro Wrestling Tees, the t-shirt company that many wrestling personalities and wrestlers have a contract with, that sells our merchandise. I'm one of them. I have a store on Pro Wrestling Tees also, but CM Punk announced that, so I'm sure the guy's selling thousands and thousands of t-shirts because of how buzzworthy he is this past week and a half, or whatever the heck it's been. And then the other part of the timeline was Punk's second podcast with Colt Cabana, his rebuttal to Vince McMahon, which was great because it was like just more and more opportunity for this guy to, break the internet, as they've been saying, right? And then here comes the main event. Here comes the main entree, the filet mignon. You just had your soup, you had your salad, you had a grilled shrimp appetizer. Here comes the filet with the mashed potatoes. You know what I mean? Butterflied with a little peppercorn on it. That's my style. Medium. That's how I like it. Anyway, I digress. So the main event was the announcement on the UFC show this past Saturday night, where CM Punk did it on camera with Joe Rogan, the color commentator for UFC, basically saying that he signed with UFC. And I just felt like, good gosh, we've been duped, folks. This was just a great marketing lowdown breakdown of truly genius get the word out there, get myself newsworthy, get it rolling. Now I dropped the bomb of UFC. And that's kind of what that started on Thanksgiving with the podcast with Cole Cabana. As far as CM Punk, that's my opinion, all my opinion. And by the way, all these opinions are my opinions. This has nothing to do with anybody I work for, especially TNA Wrestling. Nothing with this, anything on my podcast going forward. Once my debut show drops on January 7th, which soon I will be announcing the company that I am signed with that will back my podcast and who my first guest is, which is going to be awesome. So that will be coming soon at my Twitter account at @officialtaz with 1Z at @officialtaz. But it was just such a genius marketing breakdown of how and when to time this thing. Now, who was behind that marketing scheme? That's a bad word. Who was behind that marketing move? How about we use that word, move? Was it just CM Punk? Was it CM Punk and Dana White? Or was it Dana White's idea and CM Punk said, cool, that sounds good. I got my friend Cole Cabana. He's got a good podcast. He can help me. Who knows? Or was Vince McMahon involved? Was the WWE involved? Is the WWE involved? Stranger things have happened, folks. Stranger things have happened, meaning this whole thing with Punk doing this podcast, well, even before that, show after show on Monday Night Raws and whatnot, and WWE live events, people are still chanting this guy's name. And people like Triple H and Stephanie McMahon and Vince McMahon and people behind the scenes, the creative staff, guys like Kevin Dunn, all the upper executives, they're all hearing this. The wrestlers are hearing it. You, the fan base, or I guess I'm supposed to call you the WWE Universe, you have been basically ranting and raving, chanting CM Punk's name for the longest time since he's gone. So, obviously, the guy is still relevant in the fan base mind. Well, you guys, the fan base, pays the bills. And every wrestling company knows that, especially Vince McMahon. He wouldn't have had the success he had and has if he didn't realize the power of the people. So he even gave you guys a name. Like I said, WWE Universe. That's cute. Hopefully you guys get some royalties on T-shirts on that. Anyway, so the popularity of CM Punk just has not disappeared. Therefore, who knows? This is just me, armchair booking or fantasy booking, whatever you want to call it. Maybe Punk and WWE work something out. Let's enter UFC. Punk maybe wants to do something with UFC. Okay, well, he's going to dip his toes in this UFC thing. He hates WWE, hates WWE. Vince McMahon's a heathen. He's a hateful guy. He's a horrible guy. He treated me like crap. Meanwhile, my wife still works for him. That's a whole another story, I guess. I don't know. But I guess obviously she has her own career, and I'm a fan of her work, by the way, and I think she's great. But I always thought that was an interesting thing with this so-called dissension between CM Punk and the WWE, but yet his wife still works for the company. I just thought that was I still think that's very interesting. But credit to her and to him, I guess, in their relationship, it sounds like they probably, are supportive of each other. So one thing has nothing to do with the other, but it is a kind of a weird setup if you think about it. It's got to be interesting at the dinner table, So, but good for them. I mean, that's cool. So I think that if you are the WWE, you might like this. You might like the fact that CM Punk is going to be training to be a UFC fighter. And it's announced to the world that he's in the UFC and he signed a contract and all this stuff. Because, who knows what happens? In a year, it's WrestleMania. Hey, Brock Lesnar versus CM Punk. Hey, I'll pay for that. That's interesting. I mean, that could happen. That's how this is this is the way booking's done for the most part. I mean, let's think way ahead. Let's book early. Let's plant seeds, the grassroots. Let's get it rolling. And that could happen. Is it a little bit of a stretch? I think it is. A lot of people think it's CM Punk from within the business, former wrestlers like me. I'm thinking, or even current wrestlers, Punk will be back as a wrestler. I don't know about that. I don't know. Maybe if he comes back, it might be one show, in my opinion. But who knows? Then it could just be that Punk is truly gone. And he doesn't want nothing to do with WWE, which is probably the probable case. But as far as his UFC venture and all this stuff, I think it's interesting. The guy obviously has a passion for it. He's trained at it. He incorporated an MMA style to his pro wrestling style, which I can truly appreciate because I know I did that many, many years ago. It might have been when CM Punk was in high school watching me. I don't know. If he watched me, maybe he didn't. I don't really know. I don't know CM Punk that well. I mean, when I was in WWE as a SmackDown color commentator, Punk was a wrestler that kind of went working his way up the card. I thought he was a great guy. He was a wrestler's wrestler, always very cool with me. I like the guy, and I'm very happy for all the success he had in the sports entertainment realm. I really am, but I never had a problem with the guy, but I am just giving my thoughts and opinions from the bottom of my heart on how I feel about this. So it's just from where I stand, just like a lot of you have thoughts and opinions and have said them online or tweeted them, or some of you guys might be, let's say, an internet report, a wrestling reporter, and putting thoughts out there about it, and wrestlers are talking about it, and radio shows where wrestlers are getting asked the question, hey, what do you think about CM Punk? So it's thought-provoking, obviously, the CM Punk name. So I felt like let me come out here and dip into that. So let me get back to the point at hand. So if Punk is truly going to be a UFC fighter, you know, I got to tell you, I think, and it's another tweet I put out, I feel like, look, I hope the guy does great. I'm one of these guys where if a pro wrestler gets into mixed martial arts or boxing, which is kind of archaic now, or anything outside of the entertainment world where it's quote unquote rock and roll quotes with the hands, fake, you know, a worked business. When it's outside of that, like UFC, hey man, I'm all for the pro wrestler. I'm a fan of when guys from our world go and knuckle up for real and drop dudes or make guys tap out. Guys like Brock Lesnar or Bobby Lashley and the success they've had in the fight game, I'm a huge fan of. And I hope the same thing happens to CM Punk. I really do. Because I do not feel that professional wrestlers get enough credit. And actually, Ken Shamrock, the great Ken Shamrock, he tweeted something about that, I believe, late last night or early today. I can't remember when it was. I saw it online on Twitter. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of, you know, pro wrestlers, let's give CM Punk a chance because this guy might do great, because pro wrestlers don't get enough respect for the athleticism that it takes to do what pro wrestlers do. And Ken Shamrock would know that, okay? And I can tell you, I know that. And it's not just the athleticism. I will add on what Ken Shamrock said. It's also the toughness, the rigidness. The rigidness is something I say a lot behind the scenes to people within our business about what wrestlers build. You build a rigidness, a callus to your body. There's a certain toughness. I've always said that pro wrestlers are a hybrid of an actor, an athlete, and a stuntman. And I dare you to walk in a bar and get into a fight with a stuntman and think it's going to be easy to knock this dude out, okay? Because stuntmen are pretty rough dudes because they're used to getting smashed and taking bumps. Well, hello, that's the same thing we do, and do it year round, not just in a movie here or there, and not like a football player maybe does, you know, a couple of months out of the year. We do this shit all year round. So a guy like CM Punk has that callousness to his body. He has that rigidness to his body. He has that toughness to his body. Yes. Also, from a cardiovascular standpoint, you can get on a treadmill. You can get on an elliptical machine. You could go and run laps at a football field around a track. You can do all that road work, cardio work you want to do. There is nothing for an MMA guy or a boxer or a professional wrestler to get in a ring or a cage or whatever, an octagon, whatever you want to call it, and grapple, wrestle, fight, box, whatever it is that's your world. That's true cardio. And wrestlers have that because they're going all year round, all the time. A fatigue thing is never an issue. Never an issue. You know, I remember seeing this crazy MMA fight a few years back with like these two big muscular dinosaur type guys, Bob Sapp and Chemo. And everybody's like, this is going to be crazy. This is like the War of the Gargantuans and all this stuff. Yeah, and I thought both those guys were entertaining as hell, and Chemo was a tough dude, and Bob Sapp, I don't know, was he a gimmick, was he not, who knows? But what ended up happening was they both blew up. That's what happened. They both got tired and they couldn't breathe. I know Punk hasn't wrestled in a long time, but I don't think you'll see that with him. I think from a cardiovascular standpoint, he will rock and roll. So yeah, I think some will think that Punk maybe will have ring rust, as the expression goes, and not be in that cardio shape because it's been so long since he's entertained as a sports entertainer or pro wrestler, but I don't believe that. That part, I think Punk will be fine. I think from a cardio standpoint, he'll be fine because he knows what it takes to train his body to get to that level. He'll wrestle. He will train in MMA on a regular basis, I'm assuming, to truly amp his cardio, in-ring cardio up. He understands that feeling. Wrestlers know that feeling of when you start to blow up and you can't breathe, and they know that, and they know how to prevent that. And believe it or not, I'm going to get into this too deep, but a lot of that is mind over matter. It's mind strength as far as the way you're feeling in the ring. And I think pro wrestlers do that better than anybody else. Boxers, karate guys, judo, jiu-jitsu guys, straight MMA guys. Pro wrestlers know how to do that. And that'll be another podcast another time on my show, The Human Podcast Machine. So, okay, back to Punk. So his training, I think that he is training ready for, I understand. He's preparing for this. Like I tweeted, just my view, I don't think that we will see him fight for quite some time. I think the table's set. They're trying to sell pay-per-views. Punk's name sells pay-per-views. He's very controversial. He's very polarizing, as I said. I think Dana White and the UFC did a great job maximizing that. Now Punk will go to work. He'll train. I know he's been training, but listen to some of the dialogue and some of the verbiage that Punk and Dana White have said in the past 72 hours, I think it has been. Stuff like 0-0 record. All right, well, Punk is 0-0. That's totally true. And Dana White saying, we are not going to throw him to the wolves like we did with Brock Lesnar. We are going to put him in the ring with a guy just like him, a new fighter. We're going to treat Punk like any other fighter. He goes against another guy who's 0-0. And that's fair. I think that's cool. Okay, they didn't do that with Brock, and what Dana White said, and he's right, is because Brock has such a long history as, I think it was a 2 or 3 time national champion, wrestling at University of Minnesota, a Big Ten program, which is a big-time Division I program, and Brock was the stud heavyweight for the Gophers there at University of Minnesota. So he had that behind him, Brock. Bobby Lashley, all of Lashley's wrestling, his background in the Army and in college, and another guy who has a longer history as a pure grappler on a collegiate amateur wrestling platform. Another guy like Brock, who had great success, still does have great success in the pro wrestling world. So yeah, I get Dana White's point where CM Punk's a little bit different than those cats. So that Brock, as he mentioned, yes, I agree, but I got to tell you, we could see Punk, let's be honest, if he ends up in the ring, if he ends up finally fighting a guy, I think there'll be a couple of, as we say in my world, enhancement guys. I think you're going to see him face a couple of fishes, F-I-S-H, fish. And that's okay. That's happened in boxing for years and MMA and that happens. That's no big deal. I think that's cool because I think in the beginning, if Punk is truly going to have a career as an in-ring fighter for MMA, I really believe, my view, that his first few fights, he will be an attraction. He will amp up the pay-per-view buys. That's the goal. Yes. And I think Dana White and company want to see what he brings to the table as a fighter. And I think that we all got to give Punk a chance on that. Why, he's earned that to go in there and train and practice and become, God willing, a great MMA competitor. But my opinion, I think it's going to go a different direction. And this is what I think. I think while Joe Rogan was interviewing CM Punk on UFC's show, I think that Joe Rogan quite possibly could have been interviewing his replacement. That's my opinion. But I'm a broadcaster, so maybe that's why I think like that. Or he could be the third man in the booth. I think maybe he gets a couple of fights under his belt. He builds a little bit of credibility because he's been in the cage, in the octagon, and fought. So now we can make him a commentator. Maybe that's where they're going. I don't know. Maybe they're in bed with Vince McMahon, and he's going to face Brock or somebody at a WrestleMania or a big pay-per-view for WWE. Who knows? All I know is this. CM Punk is polarizing. CM Punk pushes the needle. CM Punk gets attention on him big time. Look, he got called out by Phil Baroni, another MMA fighter. Called out CM Punk, wants to fight CM Punk. This was before it was announced that he was going to UFC. I mean, there was some buzz that he might have been going to UFC, but, Phil Baroni called him out, want to fight him. Okay, whatever. I mean, I'm just saying, people are trying to get maybe rub up against MMA guys. Maybe Baroni's trying to rub up against, CM Punk because he wants to get that rub, meaning he wants to get some of that popularity on him. I don't know. Maybe he's angry with CM Punk because Punk didn't come up to the ranks as an MMA guy, which is something that Punk might have to deal with, and Punk's probably well aware of that. Their locker room are a bunch of guys who've paid their dues, who've been fighting since they're 13, 14, 15 years old, trying to become a UFC megastars. I mean, and here's CM Punk just coming in. That's going to piss some people off. But, so who knows how that gets over. But I would assume in an MMA locker room, it's not like the pro wrestling locker room, where there's probably a lot less politics, and it's like, let's just go in the ring and fight like men, and the politics or bullshit put aside. That's how I'm assuming it goes. Whatever, who knows? All I know is this. It's interesting as hell. We're all going to sit back and see what happens. We all got our speculations, our opinions, our viewpoints, including me. I just laid mine down here. I'm in Punk's corner. I hope the best for the guy. I hope he does great. Representing the world of sports entertainment and pro wrestlers like myself. I hope he goes in there and becomes the next UFC champion.
Taz.